We are Shah Rukh Khan fans. For the first time, I'll watch Shah Rukh Khan on the big screen. I'm so excited because a Hindi film is being released in Bangladesh for the first time.
If you ask about the next plan, as the government has given its approval, we will try to import more films in the future like Salman Khan's, Shah Rukh Khan's, on the same day of release as in India. We have some plans like this. Whatever we do, we will keep the rules and regulations in front of us.
That was the craze for the Indian megastar Shah Rukh Khan's film Pathan in Bangladesh, the first Indian film to be released in the country in 50 years. Hello there, you are watching Inside South Asia with me, Dasania Tauda. A huge thumbs up for the Indian economy from the United Nations. A projected 6.7% economic growth in 2024 translates to $200 billion worth of economic growth in the country. The bright spot, the adjective used by the United Nations, is quite possibly an understatement. Here's more.
A bright spot in the world economy. That's how the United Nations report World Economic Situation and Prospects 2023 put it. The organization predicts the Asian powerhouse will grow at 6.7% in 2024 to maintain its status as the fastest growing major global economy. Putting that into context, a $3.4 trillion economy growing at 6.7% suggests $200 billion worth of economic activity. The possibilities and potential for India turn mind-boggling.
We have a very large young population, and a large chunk of that is actually getting into earning and spending stage. And I think this will continue to increase in the foreseeable future. So India will continue to be an internal consumption-driven economy. And what the government is expecting is that by 2026, I think we should be a $5 trillion economy.
The report names three primary drivers of the leaps ahead. The first and perhaps most important is falling unemployment, which signals strong and resilient domestic demand. 2, easing inflation. And 3, lower import bills. Contrast this to the state of the global and the South Asian scheme of things. India's inflation is at about 5%. The regional average for South Asia crosses 11%. It's the highest in Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Prospects of global economic recovery post-COVID amid war clouds in Ukraine and climate change impacts remain dim. The world economy is projected to grow at 2.5% in 2024, actually a minor improvement over this year. However, global trade is under pressure due to geopolitical tensions, weakening demand, and tighter policies. Visible too is a global eagerness to be a part of India's growth story. Apple is betting big. New stores, new manufacturing plants, bigger India orientation plans ahead. Tesla's executives will visit this week to deepen the carmaker's supply chain as it looks to diversify beyond China. Say the same for Google, Mega, Microsoft, Samsung, and other corporate tech giants.
Growth figure for us, especially when we are fearing recession in leading economies like US and Europe, China recovery again is in doubt. So in the investing world, I mean, everything is relative. So if we are performing better than the rest of our peers, end of the day, funds are there to be invested. And these funds find their way into those economies which perform better than the rest. See, I mean, what the government has done in the last few years is they've ensured that there are large infra projects being rolled out across the country, which always has a trickle-down effect on the rest of the economy, which again means that the private capex spend will also increase going ahead, which will lead to better employment, which again leads to spending and consumption.
Finally, the word of caution. There can be no denying that India needs to guard itself against some clear red flags. A gloomy global economic scenario may mean dips in foreign investment. In addition, slowing global demand could hit exports. There's some way to go to pull millions out of poverty in India. What's important for now, though, is that things are well on track.
The Mount Everest summit is now open and many records are already being made on top of the world. Nepali climber Kami Rita Sherpa reached the highest peak for the 27th time. With this climb, he reclaimed the record for the most summits of Mount Everest. Just a few days before, a Nepali Sherpa guide climbed Everest for the 26th time, becoming the world's second person to achieve the feat. Pasang Dava reached the top with a Hungarian client, sharing the record number of summits with Kami Rita Sherpa. But later, Kami Rita scaled Mount Everest for a record 27th time, beating his own record. But do you know, before the Everest enthusiasts begin their summit, there is a rope fixer team that prepare the route. Take a look.
Ropes packed, oxygen cylinders checked, and a prayer offered for a safe journey. Every year, Nepal's guides prepare for the risky job of fixing ropes that are used by Everest's hopefuls. This year too, a team of 9 Nepalis reached the summit of Mount Everest. On the 13th of May, the weather cleared for the 9 of them to climb to the top of the 8,849-meter mountain, paving the way for hundreds of climbers in the coming weeks.
This year, because of the weather, the rope to Everest was fixed only today, so that can bring changes. The summit window doesn't stay open very long, only a week to 10 days. I think it might be a little challenging because there are many people. We see who all are able to climb within that time frame.
It is this limited period that can lead to traffic jams on the highest peak of the world.
We are thinking in detail about how to avoid a queue as we plan.
Remember this picture from 2019? It's one of a traffic jam of climbers leading to the summit of Mount Everest that went viral. Cut to 2023. Nepal has issued a record of 467 permits to foreign climbers this year. Since most of them will need a guide, more than 900 people will try to reach the summit this season, fueling fears that a narrow section below the summit, known as the Hillary Step, could get overcrowded.
I am excited, but also not. There are 2 reasons. One is that the weather is challenging. Another is that a high number of permits have been issued this year. Many people have come to climb Everest. Coupling that with the challenging weather, there might be traffic jams.
For such a huge turnout, fixing these ropes is not an easy task, both physically or mentally.
Rope fixing is a difficult job. We have to take responsibility of someone else's life. If tomorrow a knot is damaged or anything else happens, it will fall upon us.
Already 3 Nepali climbers died on the mountain in April when a block of glacial ice fell and swept them into a deep crevasse as they were crossing the treacherous Khumbu icefall as part of a supply mission. Fatalities climbed to 4 when a 69-year-old US mountaineer died in May during his acclimatization rotation at around 6,400 meters. The Nepal government came under fire in 2019 after several climbers died due to overcrowding. Decades of commercial mountaineering have turned Mount Everest into the world's highest rubbish dump, as an increasing number of big-spending climbers pay little attention to the ugly footprint they leave behind. This year, as soon as the route was opened, a Nepal army team moved in to clear waste dumped around the world's highest peak. Everest has been conquered more than 11,000 times since it was first scaled by Sir Edmund Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing Norgay in 1953. 320 people have lost their lives in the effort. Western climbers have criticized the government for allowing anyone who can pay the $11,000 permit fee to attempt a climb. Risks have been manifold this year, with a record number of permits issued. Pointers enough to say that Everest's exploitation must stop. And now,
what will be the fate of the Asia Cup? Will Pakistan host it? The recent controversy began when India cited its reluctance to take part in the tournament in Pakistan. However, a hybrid model has now been proposed by the Pakistan Cricket Board. Will the BCCI back this?
It's turning into a pitched battle for who will host the Asia Cup. The current Asia Cup host, Pakistan, says it will boycott the series if its hosting rights are taken. The latest controversy comes after India said it won't play matches in Pakistan, citing safety concerns.
BCCI should take a good, rational decision so that we don't have any problems going forward. I'm not worried about the Asia Cup. It's the World Cup. And India should not be looking at a situation where we end up boycotting the Asia Cup and also the World Cup. And then India ends up boycotting the Champions Trophy. There'll be a huge mess.
As a concession to its threats to boycott the series, Pakistan has offered a hybrid model, suggesting UAE as the venue for India's matches, while India has so far stayed non-committal. Sri Lanka and Bangladesh first rejected UAE as a venue, saying extreme heat conditions in the summer make it impossible to play in the UAE. They have now come on board to a new hybrid model. While others believe that even if India was to agree to a hybrid model, then Pakistan would expect the same for the World Cup series. For the Champions Trophy to be held in Pakistan in 2025, the Asia Cup is a crucial tournament for the PCB to showcase its strengths. No participation from India or a complete cancellation of hosting rights would weaken their position to host other multi-nation tournaments in the future. Pakistan was starved of international cricket hosting rights after the 2009 attack on the Sri Lankan team. It has had to lobby hard to resume hosting rights. India and Pakistan have strained bilateral relations and play each other only at multi-team events at neutral venues. So the question is, will the ICC be asked to intervene? And will Pakistan act on its threat?
Up next, we take a look at some of the stories that have made news in South Asia.
Power struggle between the Taliban and the previous Afghan government erupted in New Delhi in the week gone by. The Foreign Ministry in Kabul ordered a change in leadership at the Afghan embassy in New Delhi. However, the embassy employees have collectively refused to welcome the Taliban's decision. Afghan media had reported that the Taliban had chosen Mohammad Qadir Shah, an embassy employee previously working at the diplomatic office under the Republic government, would lead the embassy. Afghanistan's ambassador rejected the claims by the Taliban of being replaced as the head of the mission in India.
We categorically rejected the claims from Taliban that they have appointed Shah Rukh at the mission. The embassy operates as normal as it did in the past. There has been an individual working at our mission who defected to Taliban, sadly, and who pledged allegiance to the Taliban movement.
India has not issued any response publicly.
A full 5 days after India's Congress party swept polls in Karnataka, the party's high command finally announced Siddaramaiah as the state's chief minister. The other main contender, DK Shivkumar, will serve as deputy CM. The announcement comes amid reports of an intense tussle between the two for the top job. The two leaders have agreed to a rotational formula, meaning Siddaramaiah will be Chief Minister for 2.5 years, after which Shiv Kumar will take over.
In northern Sri Lanka, farmers protested after elephants destroyed crops across 7 villages. A herd of up to 50 elephants ravaged farmers' fields near a wildlife reserve. Local farmers say the incident is the biggest involving the protected animals in recent memory. Wildlife officials riding tractors and armed with rifles drove the herd away from villages with firecrackers. Farmers and other officials rushed to a school, fearing the elephants could harm students. No one was hurt in the incident, although about 50 people are killed by wild elephants each year, and more than 250 elephants are also shot, electrocuted, or poisoned by farmers.
We now take you to the rural parts of Afghanistan, where former poppy farmers are looking for alternatives. With the Taliban now banning opium cultivation, these farmers fear for their livelihoods.
This is Helmand province in Afghanistan, 600 kilometers away from Kabul. These farmers here are cultivating cotton, something which is not a viable substitute for their farmer livelihood. Poppy. Last April, Taliban Supreme Leader Hibatullah Akhundzada declared poppy cultivation strictly prohibited.
Following a decree issued by the Supreme Leader of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, all Afghans are informed that from now on cultivation of poppy has been strictly prohibited across the country.
Farmers were warned by the Taliban that their crops would be destroyed and they could face imprisonment if they continued with the harvest. Well, that's what the new rulers of Afghanistan officially said. Ghulam Rasool, a former poppy farmer, said that Taliban authorities had promised to provide them with a profitable alternative, but the reality is completely different.
We wouldn't have any other worries if the Taliban helped us, but because they crushed our poppy fields, they should give us help and alternatives. They haven't given us anything so far.
Takeover almost 2 years back, Afghanistan was the world's biggest producer of poppies. Despite billions of dollars spent by the international community to eradicate the drug which is used to make heroin, the country had a monopoly on opium and heroin, accounting for 80 to 90% of global output. This accounted for up to 14% of the country's GDP. Today, Afghanistan meets 80% of the world's opiate demand. The Taliban were largely successful in eradicating poppy agriculture at the tail end of their first rule from 1996 to 2000. 2 decades later, they are aiming to do the same. The current ban has dealt a severe blow to millions of impoverished farmers and day laborers who depend on the proceeds from the crop. With most of the population struggling to afford food and the country suffering its worst drought in years, the situation is dire.
We previously had lots of labor people working for us to remove weeds and then collect the poppy, but this year we do not have anyone working for us.
What options do farmers have now? That's the big question. On the 12th of May in the northeastern Daraim district of Badakhshan province of Afghanistan, at least 4 farmers were killed by the Taliban and 5 others have been injured in a dispute over the poppy field destruction. Taliban on record says that it is relentless in its pursuit to destroy the opium poppy cultivation. But the surge in the global supplies all sourced from Afghanistan shows how hollow the promise is. Drugs are a menace. It destroys lives and livelihoods. But Afghanistan is a pariah state, caught in a time warp. The world powers make grand statements, but after the exit of the Americans, no one wants to roll up their sleeve and tackle the problem. And in all of this, it's the farmers who have no other option but to continue to work in the poppy fields.
Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of the show. Do join us again next week, where I bring you all the latest action from the region and much more. See you next week for the WION team. I'm Dasani Athada, signing off from Colombo.